Okie dokie. So there is a. So in May 2015, a group of more than 60 Asian organizations filed a complaint that Harvard holds higher expectations for Asian applicants than other minorities. They argued that if applications were based on merit alone, then Asian students would make up a higher percentage of the Harvard student body. Asian students need higher test scores for admittance than whites, African Americans, and Latinos. Using the information from your textbook, what do you think? Do you think this is an accurate representation of the diversity of the Asian population? Why or why not? Well, I mean, according to the textbook, it was saying yes, that, you know, Asians are held to a higher standard. They, you know, they have a higher expectation of being smarter, having, you know, higher standards, better grades, things like that. So, but I find it hard to believe that Harvard requires them to have a different score than other populations.
Yeah. If they do, I mean, that's wrong. I feel like the bar should be set for everybody at an equal standard, but I have no clue.
But the part that I don't get fully is it says, do you think this is an accurate representation of the diversity of the Asian population? That's what I'm trying to, like, wait, how does this, I get that they're
like
setting,
sorry, go ahead.
They're setting the standard high for the Asian organization. It says holding Asian applications, or the Asians have a higher standard than others, but it says, is this an accurate representation of diversity of the Asian population? I mean, I don't know. That's where I'm confused. Phone a friend?
Yeah, using information. Do you think that this is an accurate representation of the diversity of the Asian population? Well, and again, like according to the book, like the Chinese and the Japanese are better educated, you know, speak English, you know, when they come here, most of them, and things like that. Where then when you have, you know, the Vietnamese and the Korean and the Cambodians, they don't. Like they are considered a, you know, lower socioeconomic class, right? So if you have somebody then from Korea or Cambodia or the Philippines applying, they shouldn't be, and this is not how I feel, this is how what the book is, they shouldn't be stuck into that stereotype.
Okay.
Asians have. Like that's what I'm getting out of.
Okay, so that makes sense now. So to me, yes, the representation of the diversity of the Asian population, that no, it wouldn't be, in my opinion, an equal representation, because like you said, you know, you've got the Chinese and the Japanese and the Filipinos. They were saying the Filipinos actually have a very high educational bar, and everybody else, like, yeah, like the Vietnamese, Cambodian, all those other areas, it's not as well developed. They actually struggle a lot more, and they came more as refugees. They didn't really have much. So if you're putting them all together and saying, hey, as a group or a classification of Asian, you have to be at a higher standard. Well, obviously you're asking that Vietnamese person who's a refugee that has had limited opportunity, you're asking them to perform at a higher level. So I would say that isn't an accurate representation, because you've got the highs and the lows of both sides of that spectrum.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. I think that's why I needed you guys to help me explain this, figure this out.
And then, okay.
Well, and the Chinese, like in the kind of the early days, the first wave, you know, came over as laborers. You know, they didn't, you know, the Chinese that have come in the last maybe 30 years, 40 years, have come over, have come into the country better educated and with higher degrees and things like that. But like that first wave of immigrants didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
Many universities are trying to achieve a diverse student body. They want not only racial diversity, but an overall diversity of student experience. What are some of the benefits of student diversity? What are some of the benefits?
I mean, I grew up in Rexburg, Idaho Falls area, and I think I was like maybe one black kid in my class. Like really it was all white. They were all Mormon. Everybody had blonde hair, blue eyes, like they were all the same. But coming up to like on campus, I do feel like Rexburg tries to admit there's a lot of people from like Haiti and a lot of people here. I had a roommate one of my semesters who was from Zimbabwe, and she taught me all about her culture, and like I just felt like, oh, like there are people out there that are Mormon, and she served a mission and she did this, and like it was just kind of cool just to get to know somebody that didn't grow up in the same bubble as me. But I don't know, it was just interesting, I guess. But I don't know if like not everybody grows up in a Mormon bubble. Everybody grows up around like Black people, Mexicans, that sort of thing. So I don't know.
Well, what do you think would be a benefit then to have diversity?
I mean, I guess like my eyes were open to like, not that I was like shocked every time I saw a Black person, but I was like, it stood out to me. And up on campus, it doesn't stand out so bad because there's like quite a mixture of every kind of race. So I guess like it's like conditioned me to believe, like think that yes, there are other races. Like it is not just all white people everywhere. So I mean, that's been good, just knowing that there are other people that are different and they're still okay, like they're still nice. So I don't know.
Well, I think, you know, with diversity, I mean, it gives you more background, it gives you different perspective, it gives you a chance to get to know other people too and work with them and gain their perspectives and understand them and accept them. And so I think the diversity is, if you're just flooded, you know, for example, Rexburg, all white, you know, blonde, blue-eyed, well, that's all you're ever going to know. And so when you integrate that, you get to know other people as well, and you learn how to associate with them, how to get along with them, how to accept them, and you view them differently. You know, if you grew up in down South Central LA, you're going to kind of grow up like a thug. So,
Yeah.
you know, you can kind of, even if you're white, they try to take that resemblance so they know how to interact with those people. And so I think with the diversity, it brings different cultural perspectives and allows us to. So if a school was just heavily dominated with one race or one type of background, well, then it's not going to be really balanced. You don't have a chance to have that melting pot or pool of different perspectives, I guess, you know, different interactions and things. Because if, you know, I go to school and someone's from India and someone's from Africa and someone's from, you know, Europe and then from Australia, you're going to have a different culture. You know, it's like I lived in Germany for 2 years. It was a complete culture shock when I went there. But it got me to, you know, love those people and get to know them and see their way of life and learn of other people. And it broadens your perspective. I think it helps you understand people better, and you work together and find out how you can work with your differences instead of, oh, well, I'm better than you, I'm superior, you're nothing.
Yeah, I like that.
But if you only ever have all the smart kids in your class, then that's all everyone's going to be doing is, oh, we're all trying to compete with each other, versus you might have someone that's not as smart. Like this question, the first question I asked you guys, I'm like, what the heck does that mean? But we worked on it together and found out, okay, now I make sense. So we learn from each other. If we're all on the same level, we're never going to learn and elevate where it's, those that do know more and learn better can share their perspective with those who don't know as much, and it can also teach them and help them be brought up to that level and that understanding or whatnot. So I think it overall benefits.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it goes along with like the next question that it asks is if it's like worthwhile learning and other people's opinions, other people's like motives. I think it's always better for us. And you said something about like someone being better than the other. I feel like that's always kind of like a consistent like battle everybody faces. But if we constantly are working on diversity, then we like don't feel that way. We don't feel that, oh, I'm white, so I'm better than you. It's everybody's equal. Everybody has the same opportunities, and I think that's definitely a worthwhile goal. So,
oh, absolutely. You know, and you know what, you know, somewhat like in a university setting, it's a little bit of a safe zone. You know what I mean? It's not like you're, you know, you're in class together. Sometimes you're putting groups together and things like that. So you kind of have, it's a little bit more safe than say you just, you know, all of a sudden somebody moves to Manhattan, right, or moves to Brooklyn, and has never seen a Black person or has never seen a Hispanic person, and now they're, you know, they're living in the same neighborhood. Where, you know, when you're in school, I don't know, it just feels a little bit more of a bubble where you know, you can have the opportunity to kind of get to know people, and, you know, they're all in school, right? So everybody's there to get an education. So at least that's a common thread.
Yeah, that's good.
You can help, you know, you can help each other through that kind of commonality of, okay, we're all here to learn something. Like, we're all in this same class, you know, and we might be struggling with this, or, you know, comments that, you know, somebody makes in class, you're like, wow, they really understand the material, you know, maybe they can help me out. So it gives you a little bit more of a safe space to feel out those differences, and instead of just being kind of thrown into them in the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing that I just was thinking of is, you know, is the diversity a worthwhile goal? And I think it's, you can find that common ground with them. You know, when we're thrown into a situation and we have something to relate with, it makes it a lot easier to accept that person. That gives us something that we're connected with, we're bonded with, and, you know, we realize that we're all the same. You know, I mean, great, they came from this background and they grew up that way. Different socioeconomic background, they had different, you know, minority or majority background, and the prejudice and discrimination they faced versus what you faced. But we can also share the same exact, hey, this is what I experienced at home. Hey, your home life was the same as mine. You know, the society around us influenced us differently, but hey, we have some common ground. You know, they may have a high importance on family or friends, and hey, I feel the same way. And so we can gain that and be like, okay, we have something in common. We're humans, and we can relate to each other, and I can understand that. And then I let you share, you know, your background, and we discuss it, versus I hold something against you because I'm better than you, or I was the white, blonde, blue-haired person living out in the middle of nowhere with nobody else around me, you know? I mean, or is it just, hey, we got along and we figured out how to overcome our differences and accept each other. You know, I think it's good to mix us in and integrate, because then it gets us outside of our little comfort zone in that little bubble and forces us to think differently.
Yeah.
So what characteristics do you think college students need to be successful? Well, I mean, as a college student to be successful, you know, I'm saying you need to be a hard worker, flexible, compassionate, helpful, willingness to learn, team player, honest. Those are all characteristics that any college student needs to be successful, right? So do you think these characteristics are correlated with race and ethnicity? No, I don't think that any one race or ethnicity has the I don't know the word I'm looking for, but you know, it's not just because you're white that you are all of these things, or that you're black, you are all of these things, or that you're Latino, you are all of these things. So, you know, every single person in the world can have any one of those characteristics. It doesn't matter what the race is. So,
Yeah, I agree. Like I feel like my parents are really hard workers. I feel like I've never seen my mom take just like a vacation day. Like she's always doing something. If she doesn't go to work, she's working on the house, like something. And I feel like I'm just the complete opposite. Like I have to find motivation to do things. So, and like while my mom taught that to me, I still have my own personality, and I would rather like take a day off and watch Netflix. Like there are definitely certain things that like my parents have tried to teach me, and I still have my own personality. So I think it also depends on people's general personalities. There are people that are just born natural harder workers, and they know that they have to work for what they want, and that has nothing to do with their race.
right. Yeah, it's like there's not one race that has the. I wish I could think of the. I wish the word would come to me. Has the ever, you know, of that characteristic. Like,
Yeah, I mean, and I think, you know, it makes sense, you know, which characteristics. I mean, in college, you know, to be successful, you know, a lot of it goes on. You know, you have to study, you have to do your homework, you have to be diligent, you have to put in the hard work if you want to be successful. And yes, some of us might have to work harder than others, but it's still possible. A buddy of mine, actually two of them in college, you know, they both were pitchers in baseball, and the one just had pure talent. I mean, everything was effortless for him. He didn't have to do anything to pitch really hard. And the other buddy, he's like, dude, I have to work twice as hard as him to pitch as good as he does. But he's lazy. Like he was straight up lazy, did not work for it. And yeah, later on it translated into other things in his life, and he's still kind of a bum, and you know, mom did everything for him. But you can see the difference, that hard work ethic. Just because you have pure talent, that maybe it's an innate ability, you still have to work at that. And each of us can learn. Now, maybe he wasn't taught hard work. I mean, yeah, he worked on it, but a lot of stuff was given. But the other guy knew, hey, I'm good, but I have to put in the work too. And each of us can be successful. That he was still as successful as the other guy, but he just had to work a little bit harder. Now, if he put that same work ethic, so if we put that same work ethic, yeah, there's some pure, you know, natural ability that we're just not going to achieve. I mean, some people are just built with good genetics, some aren't, but you can overcome to a degree some of that. But if you still have good, strong work ethic where, hey, I have good study skills, I'm trying hard, I'm reading the material, I'm doing everything I can, I'm doing the best I can, I'm going to achieve. It might be harder for me to get that A, but I still can get there. It just might be harder for me. But if I have those work ethics, then that contributes to my success.
Yeah.
If I don't apply myself, then obviously I'm not going to get anywhere.
Yep.
okay.
Jim Jump.
Yeah.
Great name.
I think that's a made-up name.
You think? I know a Jim Jacks. So Jim Jump, a college admissions expert, responded thusly to a question of whether or not college admissions can really be fair to everyone. I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge because when it comes to the admissions process, you are trying to weigh a number of factors, some of which are, for a lot of applicants, is that the college admissions, this person's a college admission person, he can't write. For a lot of, is that the college admissions process tends to reward privilege. If you look at things like SAT scores, they correlate very highly with socioeconomic advantage. So you're dealing with trying to equate people who've grown up in different backgrounds who bring different strengths to the table. I'm not sure we'll ever get it right perfectly. It's more of an art than a science. Not only do test scores reflect socioeconomic advantage, but income level often correlates with the quality of neighborhood schools. Students also face challenges if they are student in the family to attend college, or if generations of their family were unable to receive an education. What do you think would be fair indicators for colleges to consider for admissions? Oh, for sake. You know, I don't think that they should put so much emphasis on test scores. I think what they should do, and my son, because of his autism, at the beginning of, because he wasn't in New Jersey, you have to take a test in your senior year of high school. You have to pass this test to be able to graduate, right? So, but for Sean, he has a lot of test anxiety and things like that. So what they did is they like kept his work in a book, and at the end of the year, at the end of the 4 years, they had to turn in the book to show, like, this is how he wrote as a freshman, this is how he writes as a senior. Freshman, this is what he was doing as a senior. So they could see the progression of, did he really learn anything in the 4 years he was here? Or did he just kind of come here every day and do nothing, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's just such a much better indication. Some people are just horrible test takers, and, I am one of them. Other people are, barely have to read the book, or for whatever reason, they can just figure out how to take the test, right? And they take the test. So for me, I think they should put a lot more on kind of their, what have they done? What have, like a lot here in New Jersey now too, kids have to have so many hours of community service to graduate and things like that. And to me, I think that that's so much more important to see, what are they doing to become a contributing member of society? Are they just going to college because they don't want to become a contributing member of society? They just kind of went through school and now they're just going to go through another 4 years so that they don't yet have to get a job and, become adults? Or are they doing this to get an education because they kind of have a goal? So it's kind of like, when you're interviewing somebody, kind of give me a, 3-5 year plan, like, where do you want to be and what do you want to do? And so it's just more thought process and planning and organization and kind of more life skills than test scores, in my opinion, are more important. But I'm a little biased.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I mean, go for it, Mikkel. Go for it.
Okay. I was thinking, like, my brother was on like an IEP all through like high school, and like really, like he's not special needs really at all. He's just like has a hard time like thinking things and then like finding the words to say them, and so it makes it really hard when he's like writing a paper or trying to explain things in some a communications class or something. Makes it really hard. And he did test and like low enough to whatever the score is to be on an IEP. So he was all through high school, and then came his senior year, he had to do a senior project just like everybody else, and it was so hard for him because he has to stand up and you have to present it to a panel of people. And I just remember like my whole family was there like watching him, and I remember like being nervous for mine, but like just breezing through it and just being like, okay, whatever, I'm done. Like they're gonna let me graduate, I'm gonna be fine, right? And like my brother just had so much anxiety and so much stress over it, and not once were they like, okay, he's on an IEP, so like just kind of give him a second. And he had to present it 4 or 5 times to each night group so he could finally pass. And my mom was so frustrated with like the school and like the system the way that it was, because some people aren't just very comfortable standing up in front of people and presenting it, even though he did the work, he did the project, he did it just as well as anybody else. Just the whole presenting part made it so stressful for him that he had to do it over and over and over again to this so they would finally let him graduate. So I totally agree with that. Just like the getting to know someone's personality, what their specific goals are, and what they've learned throughout the course of high school is much better of a judgment than just on their test score or how well they did in this and how well they did in that.
Something that I learned when I was on my mission because I went to Germany and their school structure is completely different than ours. And for whatever reason, they keep trying to like dumb theirs down a little bit to the American standard, because I had some complain to me and they're like, no, I don't even know why they're watering it down. But what they would do is basically after the 6th grade, they would already have the direction that people are going to go, like if they're going to become an apprentice. And it's really like the top, I think it's like the 5% of your class actually goes on to college and gets like a college degree. So if you're going to become like a math major, you know, like a mathematician, or you're going to become a doctor, you know, the big high level where you actually test that well already for it, you would go on to the university to get the education. And here, I think in America, we have it kind of backwards, and our education system kind of doesn't make sense that, you know, we push all this testing. You know, my brother and I were talking it, you know, in high school, it was all testing, and it's, hey, they prepare you to go to college. They're not preparing you to have life skills. They're not preparing you to know how to fix your house or fix this. I mean, shoot, you want to hang up a picture. How do you use a level and a hammer, like for crying out loud? Or then you realize, wait, I'm paying how much for a plumber? Dude, I could make bank off of that just being a plumber the rest of my life versus going to college and being in debt $100,000 and never get a job because I'm overqualified or I'm just lazy. And so I think the push is just get them in college. And it's almost like repeat high school all over. I mean, literally, I look at it, I was like, I should have just dropped out as a 9th grader and just gone to college. And by the time I'm done with high school, I'd had my 4-year degree and I'd been on the road to a better avenue, and I'd have to learn all the same stuff over. And it's like, why are we teaching this almost the same way? And I understand we develop as we get older and we learn and figure out how to learn a little bit better and pay attention. But at the same time, I think it's the school system where what would be a fair indicator, well, not make college just a general education for everybody, where you have your trade schools, you have your apprenticeships. Like they work in high school over in Germany, they get their apprenticeships, they get paid for what they're doing. And basically by the time they finish their program, when they graduate, they have a job coming out. Like they already have a job. They don't have to go find a different place. And it's usually in the position where they've already been working. And yes, it's a little tougher there because you're kind of stuck in your profession for the rest of your life, like in that avenue. You don't really bounce around as much as we do here in America. But I think if there was more of those programs, then you would kind of have it testing procedures where, hey, you're going to have the astronauts, scientists in one division where you got to be stinking smart, and those maybe that aren't, but they'll already be prepared that it's not like, hey, you have to go to college. It's more or less the specific professions like lawyers and doctors and those high ones that you have to get a further education. Those would be the admittance, and maybe test on that aspect versus just, oh, well, what was your SAT score? You know, I know like law
For your
school.
GPA.
Exactly. Yeah. Like law school has their, and business schools, it's like the LSAT, they have those testing. So if everybody studies the same thing and takes a test on that, and yes, some people aren't good test takers, but I think that's a better indicator of getting into the college of like, here, here's the proficiency we want you at versus, hey, in general, here's your SAT score. And it makes sense. You know, I never took the SAT or ACT in school. I just went to the junior college, got my AA, and guess what? I can transfer to whichever school I really want to. I mean, yes, if I wanted to go to Harvard, I'm going to have to fight a little bit harder and prove with my grades, and obviously they're not there. But you have to understand that if you want to go to a good school, yes, you need to have the good grades, but if you get your AA, they look at you differently, and it waives a lot of that because you're a transferring student and they know you're committed. So there are other ways around getting in that, but I think that might be a better indicator for college of like finding, I guess, their abilities. You know, just because your brother can't present or your son can't learn, that doesn't mean he couldn't strive in college. There's so many different programs that they can get in. I think they should almost do a test of what is their work ethic? What is the likelihood of them completing? I mean, how many kids go to a 4-year college in the first year and they fail out, or they go to the parties all the time and then they don't even know what they want to do and they just waste their time versus, dude, you would have been better off going to the junior college, saving thousands of dollars to figure out what the heck you want to do with your life, you know? And so I think, what's the likelihood of them finishing, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that would be more of a fair indicator of who's actually committed. You know, are you there because you're striving? Do they reward you for effort? Where, you know, Sister Shirtlift shared last week in the training, she had a student in her class who just struggled on everything, failed like every test, but was in her class in her study hour every single week, walked into her classroom, was getting the help that she needed. And she's like, for effort, she got an A. She worked harder than anybody else in that class, but her grade overall didn't show that. And I think that should be what's rewarded is, are you actually learning something? Are you applying it to the real world, the real life, and using that knowledge? How are you using that versus, oh, I can take a test. A buddy of mine, he's got a photographic memory. It's not even fair. You know, when he went through college, he went to BYU, and he tested out of half the classes. Like, he just petitioned, said, here, let me take the final. And I'm like, they're like, there's no way you're passing. And he said, I read the book in a week and then I took the final on it. And it was literally like, because his photographic memory, he was able to recite stuff. And they looked at him like, there's no way you could remember that. He goes, I have a photographic memory. And it's like, okay, there's an unfair advantage. Like, how do you test against that? Like, you're too smart for your own good. I mean, he's really smart. You know, he's got his MBA and he's got his law degree, and you're just like, whatever. Like, but that's great. Some people are just smart.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm not going to work just as hard in college as he did. I mean, it's easier for him. But
No, but does he, you know what I mean? Does he retain and remember it though too? You know, like I think
he does. That's
good. That's good.
That's the problem.
That's more frustrating than like
Yes.
him. Like,
Yeah, that doesn't seem fair.
and
Right?
out of all of the talents, like, why
Right.
am I missing that one?
Why am I still stupid?
Yes.
Well, don't know about that, but
But in the factor though, you know, he has his academic brain and other things, you know, more hands-on. I'm a lot better than he is in that. So you know what? That's cool. I can figure those things out. Sometimes he's a little special when it comes to some of those things. And you know, there's differences, there's balances, and I get that. So I think that would be a fair indicator. Like, how do you rate that versus just your ability? Because some people are just really good test takers, and other people, they're nervous as can be, but you take away that stress, they're good. They know the material just as well, if not better.
right.
They can't put it together in a test.
Cool.
Sorry for all the rambling. I hope it.
Yeah. I get it. Any other comments or?
I'm good. I feel like we missed a question. It went by so fast, but
Right?
I
It
know.
looked like it was going to be pretty busy, and we breezed through it fairly easy.
Yeah, I think because there's a lot of
reading.
there's
Yeah,
a lot of setup, right?
Mhm.
Like, you know, there's like 3 paragraphs before you get to the first question, and then the last one is another 4 paragraphs before you actually get to the question.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of information. So, but all right, let me stop the broadcast.